Almost 25 million in nearly 25 years.
Every penny in my business counts, and I want every penny to make money for me. It was a huge amount of pressure on me, stepping away from the financial security that I had. The braveness is to actually say to my team as well, look, I've got this idea, I want to do it. I just do good things, I become a nice person, I tell people what I want. That was the biggest part for me. It changed my life.
Joe Simpson is a profit strategist who has been in business for nearly 25 years. Since launching in 2002, she has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs to build a business that they love. And this includes supporting some of the fastest growing and highest net worth online entrepreneurs. Don't Work Harder is the show for entrepreneurs who are ready to catapult their business forward, because we believe it's not about working longer, harder, or smarter. It's about those braver moments. One bold move is worth 1,000 small steps. So rather than those small incremental movements that are moving you forward at a much slower pace, we're going to share with you the stories of successful entrepreneurs who've taken those big, bold steps to move them forward. This show is brought to you by Atomic, and I'm your host, Simon Randauer, and I'm here not only to share with you the stories of entrepreneurs and the success that they've had, but you'll also walk away with the insights of what they did at that exact moment when they made that change that moved their business forward. Welcome, Joe. Lovely to see you. Thank you for flying in to see us today. That sounds quite glamorous, doesn't it? Almost 25 million in nearly 25 years. Yeah. That's quite some accolade in terms of revenue in your business.
Yeah.
Yet, you don't fly first class for business.
No.
And you don't stay in five-star hotels for business. To build a business where you've made that amount of money, but you're not spending money in those areas, is either incredibly frugal or a really clever business model. Which is it, Joe?
I would say it was a clever business model. I'm anything but frugal.
Okay.
So anything, the reason that I've always done this is because every penny in my business counts, and I want every penny to make money for me. So I want my money working for me. This is not to say I haven't traveled business class. I just don't see that as a good return on investment. Everything that I do in my business, everything that I recommend to my clients, we do an ROI, return on investment calculation on everything. And for me, to spend thousands and thousands of pounds to be in the air, to still drink champagne out of a plastic glass or a glass as such and have a airplane meal, it's just not worth it for me. Yeah, I've just never seen the need to spend the money on things like that. I'd rather the money was used for something else. So even though I talk about money, I'm an accountant.
Yeah.
I talk about money and a profit strategist. I rarely share what I've done.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely, in fact. And to the stage, I think the only time I've done it was on the podcast that you
I must have listened to, right?
So, and the reason I don't do it is because, well, one, revenue never used to be, I started my business just over 23 years ago, and revenue was never the big factor for me. And nobody talked about it. It's only, I would say, the last sort of 10 years, particularly in the online space, that people start talking about revenue. So I rarely ever say anything to anybody. I think people can tell I've got a big employed team.
Yeah.
So people know that I'm a 7-figure business owner based on, well, I'd like to think they know that based on the big team that I've got. So I rarely ever talk about the money in my business. I talk about what I do with the money because that's what's more important.
Yeah.
So I talk about my personal wealth and how I have generated personal wealth out of the businesses, but I rarely talk about turnover. So yeah, it's a very unusual one to start with because I don't think of it in that way.
Yeah, and I suppose it's interesting because it's revenue, and that's why I made sure to distinguish. And I wanted to say it was revenue rather than Joe has made this amount of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's obviously a big part of the work that you do, which we'll go into. But this is really the opportunity, I think, for anyone, let alone to have made that money, but to have been in business for 23 years plus is, quite, that alone is quite the accolade, right? So like how many recessions and economic changes have you been through as a business owner?
Yeah.
But one of the things I find really interesting is that you started with 5 clients when you set up your business, and you have those same 5 clients today.
Yes.
What is it that you have had to do to retain that number of clients, are they spending the same amount of money with you in terms of what they're paying you that they were 23 years ago?
Yeah, and it's a really interesting one, because when I started my business, I never really went in with any sort of major plan, which I don't think many people do.
Yeah.
But I knew from day one that I didn't want to be a self-employed bookkeeper or accountant. It was bookkeeping that I wanted to do at the time. I knew I never wanted to do that. But I approached people that I knew through my network, because I did a lot of networking. And I approached people that I knew through that I knew needed a bit of account support, but didn't want a temp, or, there's nobody doing what I did in those days, this sort of fractional CFO role. So I approached them, bullied them into it, took me on. And the thing is with what we do and what anybody does, getting into clients at the beginning, getting to know everything about the clients. I look at people's money. You can't hide anything from me.
It's very intimate, isn't it?
It is. So you get really, really close with them. Things happen, and I think being in with them right from the beginning and getting to be their friend first and get that trust is what's helped. The other side of it, which is what I've done from day one, because I was asked recently what I would do if I was to start again, exactly the same. I went in with what I wanted to offer, with the value, and then I built on that. So I didn't go in with, I'm going to run your whole finance department and help you scale. Some of my clients have scaled. I mean, I've got clients who are turning over multiple 8 figures now every year, not just in a lifetime, which is why I find revenue a bit of an odd conversation. But I didn't go in there with this big high ticket price, I'm going to change everything. I went in there to solve one problem. And when I solved that one problem well, we went on to the next one. And basically, we just always offered services that were complementary to what we did. And that kept people loyal, which when it came to COVID, we were a different practice then. So in the beginning days, I went in and I literally ingrained myself in clients so that they couldn't get rid of me. And I've still got clients now. I've got one client that I finished with a couple of years ago, a really large client that I ran their whole finance department for a long time, but it was just getting too big for me. So I resigned. I'm still in touch with them now. I still get paid a retainer because all the information I've got from so far behind, like for long ago, that they need to have access to me. So I think the fact that I got ingrained in the business has helped me stay with them, become part of the business, and the knowledge that I had and the experience. So they don't have to go to another accountant who is maybe very reactive. I'm very proactive.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
I become part of the business. So I go into offices, I spend time with people. I'm rarely at home. I'm always traveling and, actually being in with clients as well. So yeah, that's what I did. Started low. Certainly one of the clients, which I started with, was, I still remember, because I remember my first ever check. It was in the days when VAT was 17.5%, which nobody will remember. So it was an odd number, but it was £146.39. And I remember going to the bank to pay this check in, and it was the best thing I'd ever done. That would be like a deck chair of the Titanic in my business now. It would make no difference. But at the time, it was something I really celebrated. I have one client that was on a £275 a month package that ended up where I was running his whole finance department and I was a director, which obviously came with more money. So it just evolved over the years. And it's the relationship, and it's what I'm good at, and it's what we've always done.
How do you navigate those conversations around our services, the prices increased, there's inflationary increases? How did you navigate it?
Not very well. I think you have to look at your business and your business model and what you're doing, because our margins have been affected by all the changes that have come in and people's expectations of what we can do. So I don't have this automatic, we put our prices up every year. We've just realised that we haven't put we've got people on packages since 2015 that haven't changed. So 10 years, the prices haven't changed. So we are addressing that. We are charging things on. Software, we never used to charge our clients for software.
Yeah.
But we're paying in the high thousands now on a monthly basis for software. We are now charging it on at a discounted rate. But pricing is something that is very individual to the client, and I don't conform, and I feel very strongly about just keep putting your prices up, charge high, put them up every year. You have to look at the business as a whole and what you're offering. And we have actually got a few clients who we're going to put the prices down. Their monthly package, they don't need the package that they had.
It's so interesting. Do you have someone in the business then whose job it is to literally look at what the offer is, what the delivery is, and how it's priced? Because that in itself feels like a full-time job?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, right.
So my whole role now, because I've stepped into my CEO role.
I was almost going to say, it sounds like you're the CFO or CEO, of your
of
own
my business, which for years I never wanted to. But I realised that actually I was doing my business and my clients a disservice by doing that. So I've really stepped into that now. So my responsibility and my main role now is to look at things like the packages, what we're doing in the business, how much time we're spending, have we got a communication problem with our clients? We had a team meeting yesterday at my house, actually, because my office isn't big enough for everybody now. So we're at my house and we had a team meeting, and that was one of the things we were going over. You know, one of the girls had mentioned that a client phones her every week just for a chat, which is lovely.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's my job now to just go to that client and say, the package that you're on, that's time.
It doesn't involve a chat.
And I wouldn't have known that because she doesn't put it on a timesheet. She doesn't report that time because she's doing it while she's working.
Okay.
So it's a really interesting one. It's a big role, particularly as you scale. So I'm now making... The turnover now is not a huge amount more than what it was with about a quarter of the clients that I had.
So it really is scale.
Yeah,
you guys are delivering.
We decided
scale.
to go. We started with smaller clients and we worked in with them and we built them and built them and built them. And then I made this. One of my team members said she felt like I burnt the business to the ground. I made this decision 3 years ago that I wanted to go back into volume, which is hard work because for the same amount of money, we're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people, whereas before, for the same amount of money, we might only be dealing with 100.
We're going to take a short pause to hear from one of our sponsors. Sponsors help us make the best show possible. Don't Work Harder is sponsored by Constant Contact, the digital marketing platform built with small business owners in mind. With Constant Contact, you can grow your contacts list, send out more emails, organise social media and events, and simply get more done with their advanced automation tools. It's everything you need to grow your business, advance your automation, and attract more of the right customers all in one place. Visit constantcontact.com to get started. You must know what I'm going to ask you. What was the thinking behind pretty much the same amount of revenue being delivered, but now you must need more staff, you've got more licenses for all of the techs that you're using.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind that decision, Joe?
It was me. So a lot of the big paying amounts of money was for my time. So I used to get a lot of big packages. Obviously, I'd grown for me to run departments. So at the time, 3 years ago, I was running 3 finance teams for clients. So not only did I have my own team, I had their team. And it was a huge amount of pressure on me. If one client goes, that is a huge amount of money to hit your cash flow. So I wanted to sort of step away slightly from that. I wanted the freedom back to do what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But interestingly, a lot of the revenue that came in at the time wasn't for my time. It was for me if they needed me. If they'd needed me, I wouldn't have been able to come here today. I would have had to cancel. I could go 2 weeks without them needing me. I needed that stability. I needed that routine in my life. I don't want this pressure to perform for clients. If we lose clients, it's because they've either decided to close their business, sell their business, or they need to get cheaper, or they want to go with somebody that is a little bit cheaper. It doesn't happen very often. It's mainly if they close their business. And this year, you know, in May, we had 9 clients who told me that they were going to be closing or selling their business.
Gosh.
That's a big amount. But because they're smaller packages, it's not going to have that big impact in my business. And I've seen it. I've seen it with a lot of high ticket coaches where, you know, you're constantly looking for that next high ticket client. You're constantly, you know, looking for, if some client goes and they're on a big retainer, you know, where do you go from that? It's a lot of work to go and get another one. The hardest thing was actually keeping true to what I wanted to do. One of my girls has been with me since she left school, and she's in her 30s now and is a godmother to her babies. She was saying to me, right, okay, we support you 100%. They all had that they were behind me, but what actually happened is it meant that they all had to do more work.
Yeah, they're much busier.
They're much busier and they love it and they see the bigger picture. And long term, I'm building a business of value. So one of the things I was told by a mentor of mine, who was actually my employer at the time when I started my business, who's still a very good friend of mine, she said, set up your business from day one as if you want to sell. And I never did that. I kind of did it, but it was all very dependent on me. I have no intention of selling my business anytime soon or in the future. I love it. I will always work in some capacity. But I have now got a really sellable business, because if you bought another accountancy firm, the last thing you want is to buy an accountancy firm and the clients have got the relationship with the owner, or that's the person who's bringing in the most amount of money and they go, or they lose clients, because they will. You know, if I sold my practice, there will be some clients who don't want to stay. And that's not good for the person you're selling to. So that was another thought process, was that I'm building a business with value, which is one of the advice that I give to all my clients. Build this business, even if you never want to take on a team member, build this business as if you want to sell one day, because it becomes a proper business then.
It makes total sense. And actually, I think there's like so much wisdom in that. Yeah. But there's a few different things that are going through in my mind. So the first is, if the revenue was pretty much the same, but the costs have needed to go up, what have you needed to put in place to ensure that it is still bringing in at least the same amount of profit?
Yeah, I mean, last year we did have a big growth on revenue. We increased our revenue quite substantially last year, but for the first 2 years we didn't. And what it meant was that I couldn't take the money from the business. That was the biggest change, was that I couldn't take the money from the business that I used to take. Mm-hmm. But luckily, I did what I advised to everyone. When I was taking money out of the business, I was investing it.
You didn't spend it.
I spent a lot of it on nice things, but I invested it.
Yeah.
So that I have recurring revenue coming in from properties.
Yeah.
My assets have gone up in value. I've got stocks and shares. I've got other things and savings. So I was able to take a step back from earning the money that I was earning out of the business. So that was the biggest change. It made us become more focused on what we were spending our money on, because we got a bit haphazard, which I think a lot of businesses do. I didn't affect any of the team. I made sure that none of the team were going to be affected. We did have a lot of savings at that time. You know, and full transparency, now is probably one of the tightest periods of my business I've ever gone through, which I'm talking very openly about, because I think people think when you increase your revenue, you naturally, you know, you're making lots more money. It's tighter than it's ever been.
Yeah.
My cushions are deflated.
And I know you talk about this a lot, but it's so true. You know, there is so much out there, particularly on social media, around I've brought in this money, I had this much launch, or you know, I did a 6-figure launch, or I did whatever in a month. And actually the real question, which is obviously what you teach people, is what is the actual profit to the business? Yeah. What do you have after everything has been paid for? Also, all of that money doesn't come in 1 month, does it? You know, it comes in installments and in increments. So from a model point of view, I get it. Then I definitely want to talk about staffing in a second. But what did you need to say to your customers that meant they moved with the new model, but accepted that they were going to have less of you?
What we had to do is we had to think other ways to put me into it.
Okay.
So at the time, this actually was, and again, I'm very open and honest about mistakes that we make. So the 3 biggest clients that I was involved in, I stepped away from. I'm still actually, they still are clients, but I didn't do my CFO role in that anymore. Yeah. One of them I still do, but we've got a bigger team in there. They've scaled massively. So it's not as much responsibility, and I love them. So if I like people, then we're good. The other 2, they knew that I wasn't wanting to do it anymore. And I trained, I mean, I did a big handover, a year handover for somebody else for them. You know, we did all of that. The clients that became the issue were people that came on when we started scaling to the lower middle, because I wanted to give so much value. I was like, you'll still get a call with me every 3 months. You'll still have me. You'll get access to me. And then I've never had an assistant before. I've never had an EA or a PA or virtual assistant ever until 3 weeks ago. She started at the beginning of July. And it was all me to do this. And it was somebody in my team actually said to me, she went, the amount of clients we've got now, if you do a call with them every 3 months, you'll be on over 120 calls. Every single month, as well as my CF, because I have got CFO clients. I've got 14 CFO clients, as well as my mastermind that I run, my membership calls, all of that. So it just wasn't possible. So we then reached out to people and said, look, I'm sure you can understand, you know, you're not able to get me, but you've got the relationship now with your account managers. So really it was making the account managers more ingrained with them. And that was training for, so Alison and Nick, and I've got an Nick as well now. They're the 3 ones that they've developed their own relationships with clients. To the stage yesterday, I actually said, I didn't recognize a client's name, which has never happened before. I was like, who's this? And they said, oh, they've been with us a while. This is the name of our business. So it was really interesting going going through that and getting them to like them, the other thing that I did is that I've got a membership it was originally set up to help people who've got accountants but want a second opinion or want to ask them something they might not feel comfortable asking their accountants. And then I decided, right, I've got this membership. I turn up every week for this. Every Monday I turn up for this. Why don't I give all my clients free access to that membership so they still get a bit of me? So they still get me in that.
And you still do that?
Still do that. So
Okay.
I do that. So every week we do a call. Every week I've got a personal finance expert in there.
Yeah.
So every single one of my accountancy clients gets that for free. We have a marketing person in there teaching social media. It's not just accountancy. We just added so much value to our package that it didn't matter that they didn't have me. I am still there for clients. And I always say I'm always there if you need me. I've had a few clients go through divorces in the last year. I say a few, quite a lot. And that's a really sensitive thing. So I will go on calls with people 10 o'clock at night if they want to pick up the phone to me. I still am there for them.
Yeah.
But I just try wherever I can to encourage them to use the account managers. And I've got so many clients now who prefer them to me. So it's worked.
It's a good start.
Yeah, it is good. But I've got the right team. I've got the right people in it.
What was the biggest thing that you had to do that was out of your comfort zone in order for that to happen? I feel like we've touched on some of it.
Yeah.
But seeing as we're about don't work harder, work braver, I can see the don't work harder, right? You're like, okay, I've got this smart model now.
Yeah.
What was the be braver piece?
The braver piece was really stepping away from the financial security that I had in the business.
Okay.
And stepping away from people paying, me for my knowledge, for my memory, because it's one of my biggest keys to success is have a good memory. I remember all sorts of things. So stepping away from that and actually having the braveness, I suppose is the term that I would use, to actually say to my team as well, look, I've got this idea. I want to do it. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I could scale my business. And that was a very, very brave, because I was effectively walking away from guaranteed revenue.
Yeah.
And at the time, we're talking tens of thousands of pounds a month of guaranteed revenue. So and it took me a long time. It took me a long time to do it. It didn't happen overnight, but having that braveness to actually say, I am going to just step away from this now and I'm going to try and do it on my own. Because what I'd done, and I've spoken to clients about this, and what I did is I gave everything to my clients' businesses. I mean, one of the clients that I did all the FD role for, I used to do sales for them as well. If there was a big meeting where there was a presentation, I would go and do sales for them. I managed tender processes. I managed HR for them. I managed compliance for them. I used to go to sites for them. I did so much for them. I'd done so much for them that I'd neglected my own business.
Yeah.
And hadn't really done much in my business. So that was probably the bravest to say, actually, can I do this? Can I actually walk the walk and do it for myself now? And I still had a very, lucrative business, but it was more just a mechanism for a small team to get paid, if that makes sense.
And when you finally made that decision, at the level you're at and the fact that you were running a team, was it a process of getting people on board? Or was it, this is my decision and this is what we're doing?
No, it's to get people on board. So I speak to my main team. So the team is amazing, but my main people, whenever we do anything, any big decisions in the business, I always talk to them about it. So at the time, they could see how unhappy I was, because I wasn't happy.
Right.
I wasn't happy.
So that was almost a signal to yourself, is that the money's there, but I'm not what is it we said when I was, introducing you? It's build a business that you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And I didn't love it. I'd fallen out of love of it. I felt like a performing monkey. I felt like I always had to be on for people. It was a lot of juggle as well. And the money, I like nice things. I've been poor, it didn't work for me. I've had times no money, but I like nice things. So to walk away from that security, I'm also the only breadwinner in our family and have been for 20 years now. So to take that risk that actually this might not work out, and the thought of actually having to go back to these clients and they can have you again or build it up. So I talked about it with the team. My family knew how unhappy I was. They supported me, particularly my parents, because my parents moved up from the northeast so that I could look after them, and they're older, and I was a main carer for my mum, so particularly them. Because I remember my dad sort of saying, we'll help out if ever it comes to that. I don't really have a fear about making money, because I know I can always turn my hand to something.
Yeah.
It was having that security net, from nearly losing everything in 2008 to then, walking away from building it up again. It was a scary thing. The team, I don't think they really understood the implications of it, but they soon did. But they were all quite supportive. And actually, they love working with different people. They love having more clients and having more people to speak to, instead of just being with, 4 or 5 big clients. In a typical day, they can speak to 20, 30 different clients, and they love it. So it was a big decision. And there was big decisions to be made as well from how I was actually going to go and get those clients. And that was what they asked me. That was the big thing, was, right, how are you actually going to do this? How are you actually going to go and get these clients?
And the answer was, Joe?
Networking, being seen, being visible.
Yeah.
I've always gone to networking events. It's how I actually met my husband, a networking event 25 years ago. I get asked all the time, I feel like you've just popped up out of nowhere. I've been doing this for a long time, and I got visible for a long time. And I asked the people I wanted to work with, the people I thought I could help, like Carrie, like some of the other people in the online space. I just asked them, I said, look, this is what I've done for other people. This is how I've scaled their business. I can help you scale yours.
And what did you have to do differently then? So if you were already very visible and suddenly you're going from kind of individual big businesses to now we want to go for scale, you've got the membership model. Was that built around that
was
same
coming in
time?
at the time. It wasn't my online business. I always wanted to have very separate. I was that person that I am sure a lot of people became COVID entrepreneurs, but I wasn't. This was way before that. But I was that person that once I saw, as an accountant, you've got to meet everybody in person. So I couldn't go past my local area in Scotland, really. I had some clients in the Northeast, which is where I'm originally from, but I couldn't really go any further. And when I first discovered Zoom, 10 years ago, and when I saw what Carrie was doing, I thought, hang on, I can go to thousands and thousands of people here. I can really do it. But it's harder. It's much harder to do it that way, to scale to so many people. So it was more just actually making the connections with people and saying, look, I'm wanting to get back, having the conversation, asking for the sale, saying to people, I think I can help you. The one thing that I really did is I made really good partnerships with some amazing people. Actually, one of them, I'm going on her podcast this afternoon, which is one of my friends, Susan, who's got a beauty business, and she runs a membership model for beauty salon owners. So I made relationships with her, and we became really close. And then she put me in front of her audience. So that was how we were able to build our salon side of our business, where we've now got over 100 beauty and hair salon clients. And I became the expert in that area. I learned everything I needed to know about the software they use, what they want to do with money. I learned everything about that. So I took one niche, did it really well. And then the last few years has been the online space and doing that really well. So not going and speaking to lots of people, making partnerships with people who've got audiences as well. That really worked well for me.
And you talked about 2008. So what happened in 2008 then?
So 2008 was the recession, which was the banking collapse, the financial collapse. For me, it came out of the blue. It totally came out of the blue for me. I remember...
It's Lehman's brother time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for us, it was more the Royal Bank of Scotland. So in the UK, and obviously I was in Scotland, the Royal Bank of Scotland, there was a certain person who was running the Royal Bank of Scotland, and the whole thing just collapsed. So the government had to buy the Royal Bank of Scotland. And there's a key note in this why I mentioned the Royal Bank of Scotland. So what happened is all the banks pulled funding from construction people. So say, for example, you were a developer and
that was the industry you were mainly serving.
Construction. Well, I had 2 industries at the time, and both of them were affected badly. Construction, you're valued. You've got a piece of land that's got a value on it. The banks revalued all these lands. So they would say it's not worth $1 million anymore, it's worth 500,000. The property crash came. Houses were in negative equity for the first time in a long time. People were over mortgaged. My mortgage at the time, I remember, was 12.2%.
I'm actually now remembering exactly when this time was. Yeah.
And people go, 12.2, we're up in arms because it went up to 4%.
Of course.
But I remember
because they don't remember.
Because they don't remember. So mortgages were really high. People were taking out money. I remember going for my first mortgage years before that, and the bank manager, because you sat in front of the bank manager, said, do you want extra money more than the house so you can do it up? I mean, that's what used to happen. So the whole thing crashed. My construction clients who had balance sheets, in simple terms, net assets of millions, went to having nothing. Overdrafts were pulled, fundings were pulled. People, luckily, and to this day, I've only had one client go into liquidation, which I'm super proud of in all the years that I've been in business. Nobody went into liquidation. We pulled out of it. We negotiated with HMRC. But the point, to answer the question, is for me, it felt like it happened overnight. And at the time, I had 5 businesses at the time, all very successful businesses on the outside, big revenues. They were profitable. But I was spending every penny that came into the business and every penny on me.
Right.
The flash car, the flash outfits. Didn't have the flash house, thankfully. That was one thing that I never wanted, mainly because I didn't want to clean a big house at the time. So I didn't have any of that, but I did have the lifestyle that my businesses couldn't sustain when I needed it not to. But the biggest thing that had the biggest impact on me for my clothing business is that the exchange rate dropped. So I was buying everything in euros. And I was buying everything in euros when it was 1.4. And then when it came to paying for all of this stock, it was down. It was pretty much pound to euro.
So you lost all that money.
Me in the region of about £90,000. Now, bearing in mind what I do for a living, that shouldn't have happened. So there was a huge amount of shame around that for me that I didn't see it coming. So we pulled ourselves back. I didn't make anybody redundant. I kept the clients. I negotiated payment plans. I had some suppliers.
That's what I was going to ask you. So what did you do?
I pulled everything. I just pulled everything back that I could. It was horrible.
So do you mean as in when you say pulled everything back, you looked at your costs?
Yeah, looked at my costs,
right?
Which is the first thing you should do. You do that anyway. The worst time to look at your costs is when you're in a moment of panic. Because you just cut everything, which is what happened in COVID. I saw it happen in COVID. People were cancelling things left, right and centre because they were panicked. If you're in a place of panic, which is why I always say now, prepare yourself for these and make sure you know at all times. I cut costs I didn't need to have. I think we'd been married for 2 years by then and we still had champagne. I remember having champagne like with my beans on toast on a night, like we cut our personal expenditure. We used to go to Tesco's on a night time, for example, at 8 o'clock at night because they had an aisle where
it's amazing what you can do.
Now, I would never have thought that I would do that, but we stopped eating out. So my personal lifestyle changed very much. I kept my car and I kept my cleaner. Which I probably shouldn't have kept either, but that was my decision.
Yeah.
So I did that. And interestingly, actually, I remember my car at the time, I went to a meeting and somebody said to me about a month later, one of the reasons we chose you because you had a nice car, and that particular client got me out of the trouble.
And I've heard this said before. Actually, that's my calling card. I think I might have seen it on Sex and the City. But it's like
some people don't like. I like cars.
Yeah.
So I did that. Cut my personal expenditure. I spoke to everyone. That was the key. I spoke to everyone and negotiated.
So you made it really personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I made changes and I built it back up till 2015. 2008 to 2015, I built it back up. I could have liquidated. I didn't think that would look good to my client. My clients wouldn't have been bothered. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I took responsibility. The biggest change overall for all of they were all the physical things that I did, but the biggest change was changing my mindset. I realized nobody was going to come and save me. Nobody was going to save me. It wasn't the bank's fault. It wasn't the government's fault. It wasn't my mortgage providers. It was nobody's fault. I even blamed my parents for making me like nice things.
Yeah.
Everybody got the blame, but actually it was me. I'd let myself get to this position where I was spending more than I had coming in. And I hadn't thought about my future and my ego. I was winning awards. I was in magazines. I was in newspapers. In Edinburgh as well. I was known because I had three clothing shops in a prominent area. The Curvy Girl brand was doing really well. I let my ego take over. And I had to pull that back.
Did somebody catch you on that or did you catch yourself?
Noel Edmonds. So he had a TV programme called Mr. Blobby.
Yeah. I literally know everything about him. Yeah.
He got sued and he went bust. And
for the Mr. Blobby character.
Yes,
right.
So there was something that had happened. His marriage had broken down.
Yeah,
I do remember this. Interviews about everything. And when I'd done all the practical stuff in my business, all the things I could do, I thought, right, what can I learn? What can I do? I've always believed in what you put out there, you get back, but I didn't know it was a thing. So this is in 2008. Nobody was really talking about law of attraction, manifesting, or anything like that, but I knew it was a thing. And I saw an interview with Noel Edmonds, and he talked about cosmic energy, which is cosmic ordering, which is basically telling the universe what you want. Now, I'd read, up until then, I'd heard of a book called The Secret.
I knew you were going to say The Secret.
Everyone's heard of that. That
Yeah.
came out. I read it and thought, I don't understand a word of this. It made no sense to me at all. I've read it since and I get it completely. At the time, it made no sense to me. I couldn't understand it. And Noel Edmonds did an interview and he talked about a book that he'd wrote, and he used to do cosmic ordering by drawing little symbols on his hands, and he did that for years. I don't know if he still does.
No, I didn't know that
he did little symbols, you know, light bulb to give him inspiration. So he talked about how he'd realised that there was more out there, and he put out to the universe what he wanted, and he came up with the idea for Deal or No Deal, which is still now
still runs
huge. So he got all his money from that, and the makeup artist on the show, I think, is still now his wife. Don't quote me on that, but he became his wife. So Deal or No Deal changed his life. So he went from being what you would think that the pits of despair to having this whole life, and he put it down to cosmic ordering. So I bought his book, How to Be Happy, I think it's called. It's got happy in it. And it just made total sense to me. And I thought, this is easy. I just do good things. I become a nice person. I tell people what I want. I set up things for manifesting. I don't sit in a circle of crystals. That's not my manifesting. Mine is, you know, I make space to things to come in. I do nice things. I'm kind.
You take the
I do believe
actions.
if you give, you get back. And I did all of that. And that was the biggest part for me it started happening. Little things started happening. And it changed my life.
The other thing that's coming through is you've always had a team. Like even just now, so we've talked about, you know, what happened 3 years ago when you were changing your model. You knew you needed to become the CEO of your business.
Yeah.
Then we go back to 2008. You're like, I didn't lose anyone on my team.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a conscious business model that you don't have freelancers.
Yeah.
You have an employed team. Yeah. How big is your team now?
So we're a team of 15, including myself. Everybody's employed.
Yeah.
Always done that. I've dabbled over the years.
And why? For anyone who doesn't know the benefits, what are the tax benefits?
For me, no. I mean, people worry about taking on employees because you have got to pay national insurance, you've got to pay them if they're off sick,
pension,
pension contributions. People worry about all of that. But for me, that's never been a factor because that's my business. You know, I work out the cost of somebody, whatever I'm going to be paying them.
So it's
a business decision.
Thought into it.
It's already thought into it. I want them for myself. Truthfully, if you get a subcontractor, they're working for other people. I want people who are 100% behind me and my brand.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to achieve. And I'm not going to say that, I mean, I'm, you know, as freelance CFO for some of my clients, I'm 100% behind them. I don't need to be employed by them to do that. But my experience was if they're employed, they become part of what we're creating. And we are, it sounds so corny, I hate even saying it out loud, but we are a family. We are so close. I tell my team every day I love them. Every day. I've always said a message. I said it now.
I'm going to speak to Andrew and Pete.
My marketing director there, she just messaged, says good luck. And I message back, love you. We are so close. And that's really important that you have that. So I've done everything that they say not to do. I employed, which they say not to. I become friends with them, which they say not to.
Yeah.
But I've always had them involved in me and my business and my life.
Yeah.
You know, my team. So not having them as a subcontractor. The other side is the subcontractor rates are high.
Yeah, yeah.
And people will say, oh, but then you can pick up and drop them off. Subcontractors are there to get you to a certain point.
Yeah.
So if I've got projects, then I will take on a subcontractor to do the project, but I can't justify paying, you know, £100 an hour to subcontractor for argument's sake for them to do day-to-day things in the business. So it's been a cost thing, but mainly for me is I like to have control of them. I like to know they're mine and they're fully focused on our business.
Sure. And who was so it sounds like your last hire was an EA?
Yeah, it's just this month.
And your very first hire?
My very first hire was a bookkeeper.
Okay.
Yeah, so a bookkeeper. I always take people on, which is part of the Don't Work Harder, which is why I love what you guys are doing. I knew I needed somebody else to do the work because you can't scale. And I knew from day one that I didn't want to do all the work. I knew that. I wanted to be my zone of genius. Whereas, so for what I do in the finance profession, bookkeeping, accountant, talking about things like this, it's very unusual that you'll get somebody who is a bit like me. I think I'm quite unique when it comes to that. So I knew my zone of genius was going out, getting clients, having meetings, going to board meetings, negotiating, writing business plans, doing all of these things that I've done, doing presentations, getting venture capitalists, doing all the finance stuff without doing the bookkeeping. So I took on a bookkeeper. The one role that I've never got right, that I've tried a lot at the time, because it was my next hire, was a salesperson. So I took a salesperson on, never worked, and it hasn't ever since. So I just don't even bother to try.
And why do you think that is?
I think it's a difficult one to do, because I think sales works 100% and it works for a lot of companies. But for my business, the way our business is, you know, you become a JK girl or a JK guy or a JK client. It's a big part, right? We're a community. And if somebody else is doing that and they're not me, I'm sure it would work. It has to be my next hire.
Yeah.
Because I want to remove myself even more from that. I've just never got it to work. And truthfully, if I look at any mistakes in my business anyway, it's always down to me. So it was probably me. I never gave them the right instructions. They could never do it as good as me, which is a lot of problems that people don't want to take on employees, because nobody can do it as good as them. I've never felt like that about anything other than sales.
So what do you think you've learned from all of these hires that is helping you as you are changing the model of your business? What would you say it is? Taking them
for who they are. I don't care what their experience is. I don't even care if they've been sacked from a position before, which happens. People leave. I check references only in terms of their integrity and all their qualifications and things like that. Getting them and making sure they gel with us. I can know within I've been known to interview somebody over the phone and know that they're right for me. I didn't even interview my EA. I didn't even interview her. One of my team, my marketing director, she looks after me and she wouldn't give it over to anybody. And I said, look, I need somebody else on. It's not fair on you. This is not your job to look after me. Go and find me somebody, take on one of your friends. So she took on one of her friends. So everything they say they shouldn't do, but she's then got the support of her friend. So the biggest thing I've probably learned is to take them for their personality and not for what their skills are. When I say skills, I mean like the practical skills. If they're good on Sage or Xero or QuickBooks or the best accountant in the world, if they're not going to fit into our model.
Yeah, team culture sounds like it's really
is huge, absolutely huge. I mean, we put kisses on the end of every email.
To each other or to clients?
To clients. Okay. And we have a lot of male clients who put kisses back, who would never do that with anybody. It's just part of our culture. So if we get somebody in who's quite, not feeling comfortable with that, it can cause issues because they can come across quite abrupt.
Because it's suddenly completely different.
And we've had that. I've had some bad hires over the years. I tend to know. Again, one of the biggest lessons for me, and it is for everything in business, I can normally every aspect. I've got 6 pillars in the business. Everything in there, I can relate it back to me, taking responsibility, understanding, and going with your gut and not doing it from a place of panic. So whenever I've had to recruit somebody from a place of fear, which Nick, who's my main girl who came to me when she left school, she was pregnant with twins. And in my head, I knew she was going to go early, but she actually went 9 weeks early. So we were not prepared at all. So I literally was just like, get me anybody. And we took somebody on who it didn't work out because she wasn't right for us. And I knew.
And the decision was made in panic.
Yeah, it was made in panic.
Yeah.
So when you do anything with money, so we're talking about 2008, when you're trying to make decisions in panic, it's the worst thing you can possibly do. So every bit of it. So to make decisions and think the next step, and taking on people before you're quite ready as well, because you've got time to get them as part of the team. I took on a chartered accountant in February this year, which is probably my biggest hire full time for us. Which was a big scary hire because it's a big salary. And she'd come from a very corporate background, not been in a practice for a while.
Okay.
But I knew she was right. She's got young kids. She wants the flexibility. She fit in great. She came in February and she's had time to up and run. She hasn't now. From the 1st of August, she's full on. But she's had time to settle in. Whereas when I've taken people on where it's like, right, you need to be working right now, and understanding that we are different. You are not the accountancy practice that you come in and you're going to get an induction and go through a 25-page PowerPoint presentation. You come in, that's your desk, there's your mug. We show you the fire exit and then you get on.
When did you realise you were no longer a startup? Because you are not describing a startup to me. You are, you've got vision, you've got brand values, you've got company culture. Can you remember?
I feel like I became a startup 3 years ago, even though I was
you started again.
I feel like I started again, and we changed everything. And I've really stepped into that CEO role, which is interestingly now what I'm teaching. That's my main teaching now is to people, is that step into your CEO shoes as such. So that felt like it was a startup again. I think you always feel in some shape or form, it's not an imposter syndrome, but you feel in some shape or form that you're still learning.
Yeah.
I am still learning new things every day. But if I go back to the principles of what I started with, I still carry those out. So I think I never really got away from that. It's only now when I see people celebrating 2 years in business and 3 years, I think, God, that's a long time. And apart from the fact I tell everybody I'm 23, being in business for a long time is, it's something to be proud of. And I do talk about it a lot now. I never used to, but I do now because I've seen it all. But you have no illusion that I'm in an any better position now than what, you don't suddenly make it. You don't suddenly get to that level and go, right, we can sit back, because that's when your ego kicks in as well, which can cause problems. I'm probably working harder, whatever way we use harder, than I ever have. I flew down from Scotland today because I really wanted to be on this podcast. So I was up at the crack of dawn. In terms of things like that, it's a different type of hard. My favourite expression at the moment, choose your hard.
Yeah. You've talked about so many brave moments, but you've also said, if I don't know how to do it, I will learn.
Yeah.
So before we conclude, what is the last thing you didn't know how to do in business that you had to learn?
Facebook ads.
Oh, that has made me cry. How did it go, Joe?
So what I've learned, and actually this is, I talk about these 6 pillars in the business. It's a learning for all of them. When there's money involved, if you're paying money for anything, you can't outsource that to somebody. So if you're in charge of your money, if you've got an accountant, a bookkeeper, or a friend who does your books, and the most common thing people say to me is, oh, I've got an accountant book who does that. I don't know anything about it. I don't need to. Well, as a CEO, you do. There's some key things you need to know as a CEO when it comes to your bookkeeping and accounts. So I will not accept anybody not taking responsibility for that. I don't create your tax date. The government creates your tax date. It's not my responsibility to know when your tax is due. I can guarantee I'll make sure it's done.
Yeah.
But, my clients have to take that responsibility and understand the figures they need to understand, even though we're doing the bookkeeping and accounts. So the same principle applies for me with Facebook ads. For years, I've outsourced that to my team. We've had experts come in, brilliant experts, absolutely nothing on them, but I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the principles behind it. I never got involved. I outsourced a whole lot of it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And then last year I thought, this is money that can very easily go down the drain. So I took the time to learn it. Can I create an ad? Absolutely not. Can I work out I can't even go into Canva. I think I'm the only person in the world who's not logged onto Canva yet.
Yeah.
I can't do any of that stuff, but I understand how it works now.
That's the mechanics you need.
You understand the mechanics. So that was the big thing and now that I know that, I'm in a much stronger position to work with the company that's doing our Facebook ads and my team member that's doing the ads as well. I understand it. So that was a big part of it, which again is what I'm going to leave you with, is that you can relate that to anything in your business.
Yeah.
You don't need to know, like my IT system, I've had the same IT providers for they actually bought the business. So this particular company, they bought the IT business 20 years ago. I think I was their first client. They're now huge, the biggest IT company in Scotland. We pay them thousands a month. Do I understand how my server works? Absolutely not. Do I know what has to happen if something goes wrong? Yes. So I understand and learn the key things in business that I need to learn. And the day-to-day stuff, I don't need to learn how to go into Canva. That'll be hours of my life I'll lose.
Yeah.
But I understand the key bits of my business that I need to and learn it.
Thank you, Joe. And I know when we were talking about this, I said, I want this to be the conversation that people aren't going to find elsewhere online. And for you to have kind of opened the doors and allowed us into how your business runs and what you have achieved and how you've achieved it, it was really, really generous of you. So we have a closing tradition, which is I like to ask people, and it's really for selfish reasons, so I can write it down for myself. What are you watching, reading and listening to right now?
Okay. So watching.
Yes.
I'm watching Virgin River, which I've been trying to watch for about 2 years.
Where is this and what is it?
Virgin River, my friend Lisa Johnson recommended it to me because it's a good switch off.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
I started it last year. It is good looking men, and it's kind of like Yellowstone, but softer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I'm watching that. When I say I'm watching it, I've not actually turned my TV on now for about 6 weeks. I lie. I watched The Chase the other night with my father.
Okay.
So The Chase is probably the most thing I watch. Reading, I read probably about 4 or 5 books every single week.
Okay.
I have just started reading today. I'm looking because it's in my bag. How to Make a Billion. Something like that. It's a new book that's just come out from an entrepreneur from Newcastle.
Okay.
So I'm reading that. And I'm also reading a fiction I just started last night, which was The Ghost of Holcroft Manor, because I like ghost books.
Amazing. So you'll read books simultaneously?
All the time.
Okay.
I always have a business book on the go, a self-help book on the go, and I normally read probably 3 fictions a week, and they're normally horror.
Amazing. This is what the extra time
This
in
is
your
how
business.
I switch off. I was on a business retreat in February where everybody was sat there around the pool reading all these business books, and I'm sat there with my horror book.
Great.
And I'm saying, this is how I switch off.
Yeah.
And I love reading because you can't do anything else. If I'm watching the telly, which is why I don't watch much, which is why I only watch quiz shows really.
Yeah. We can get distracted.
I will go through my phone, I'll have my laptop, whereas when you're reading, you can only read. I'm a complete bookworm. It's because I'm an only child. I was given a book and no TV.
And anything that you're listening to?
Listening to, not really. I tend to listen to, I listen to a lot of pop music. J-Lo I was listening to this morning, getting ready. I'm a YouTube fan. I'm a massive YouTube fan. So I tend to put YouTubes in my ear. Podcasts, obviously going to listen to this podcast.
Obviously, yeah.
I've got 5 or 6. I like true crime podcasts as well.
Okay.
Particularly gruesome ones.
Gritty.
Surprise, surprise.
Love it. Joe, thank you so much for coming in to see us. What a brilliant conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Another brilliant conversation. This time we get to speak to someone who had the longevity of, 22 years plus in business, to have brought in that amount of revenue, yet still have the honesty about the way in which she spends, I think is really quite invaluable, because what Joe has showed is that has been sustainable because she has had to tighten her belt when she has needed to. Yet the one thing that was really consistent with Joe is she has always had an employee model. And what Joe talked about there around the values of the company culture is what has kept her business supporting her as she steps more into that CEO role and away from the day-to-day part of her business. Yeah, we're so lucky to have these conversations, and yet another brilliant chat with a founder, an entrepreneur who kind of sets for us the scene of what a successful business gets to look like. Thanks so much for listening to Don't Work Harder. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. This show has been brought to you by Atomic, the home of epic business growth. Head to our website at atomic.site to hear more about our business programs and epic events.